I hate the high seas. The idea of being out at sea with the endless salty waters as my horizon is the worst to me. I have horrible motion sickness, so the shifting and unpredictable waters make me immediately seasick. All sorts of things are trying to hurt humans, like jellyfish, or even kill us, like sharks. I hate the seas, and I'm pretty sure they hate me right back. Welcome folks, I'm Livvvid. Before this video, I had never played The Legend of Zelda, the Wind Waker, a game originally released back in 2002 on the GameCube, which has its core setting centralized around the seas. And at the time, as a kid, I didn't like the cel-shaded cartoony look of the game. I loved Ocarina of Time. Sure, it looks a little bit rough today, but it felt gritty and serious. Between my hatred of the sea and my childhood pickiness, the Wind Waker had a lot of biases going against it from me. But despite all of that, it's still a Zelda game. It was one of those games on the ever-growing list of, I would really like to play such and such game that everybody seems to like. In today's video, I'll be talking about my experiences playing The Legend of Zelda, the Wind Waker HD for the first time and giving my thoughts and opinions on it. You've been made aware this is my first time playing the game, so I won't attempt to be an authority on it. And I'll likely miss some things that many of you know like the back of your hand. This video is for your entertainment, and I'll be speaking about the game in both broad and sometimes specific terms. Whatever comes to mind and stands out most in my experiences will be the focus. Not to jump too far ahead, but if you have not played it, I recommend playing it, and I will almost immediately be speaking about spoilers, so you've been warned. If you end up liking the video, please like, comment, and subscribe. I would really like to play more Zelda games, and that would help a lot in letting me know that there would be people willing to watch. Thank you. Something important to mention is which version I'm playing. With the recent release of the Switch 2 and the GameCube Online being added, the original Wind Waker is available to play on it. The only issue there is I don't have a Switch 2, but I own a GameCube and a Wii U. I decided to play on the Wii U in part due to the graphics, which mostly looks great, but it suffers from a really apparent blooming effect that the GameCube version doesn't have. It's most often noticed outside on certain character models, but it was only like 10% of the time I was outside. The bigger reason for playing the Wii U HD version is that it had a ton of quality of life features added. The swift sail will increase the movement speed and changes the wind direction in the direction you are sailing without having to change it via the Wind Waker, with 5 of the 8 shards now being found directly from Discovery and not having to go through Tingle's deciphering. And many more changes like this would shave an estimated 18 hours of gameplay from the original. Look, I like video games and all, but I'm interested in solving some puzzles and experiencing the story of this game, not growing old with it. The Wind Waker takes place long after the events of Ocarina of Time. That same world has been flooded by the Great Sea, a sea containing 49 islands stretched out over a huge overworld. Of those 49 islands, there's one called Outset. It's here where we meet a young boy named Link, who lives here on the island with his sister and grandmother. This island has some neighbors, and life appears generally calm and relaxing. Coming from the N64 era Zelda games like I have, the gameplay of the Wind Waker feels very familiar. The layouts for items and commands are virtually the same. Hacking and slashing with your swords feels very familiar to me. Constantly rolling around on the land to get to places quicker still works. Although I was outraged that you can't roll all the way up staircases without hitting it sometimes, interrupting your completely logical method of movement. I thought this was a Zelda game. If I want to continually roll upstairs, somehow gaining momentum the entire time, I should be able to. So the gameplay felt familiar in a good way. What was more surprising to me was how familiar the setting felt despite how different other things were. The graphical style, which I now really like as an adult by the way, both the GameCube and the Wii U graphics, is still very different from Ocarina of Time. They don't call him Toon Link for no reason. Little details like the swirls and the smoke stand out as unique artistic choices that I really like. The game certainly has its own style whether you like it or not. Another unique choice is the world itself has been completely flooded over. I had never experienced that before in Zelda games, and I can't think of any other games where I played in a world like this. Yet on these little islands are bastions of people who carry on the traditions from a lost era. One of those traditions is a boy's coming of age ceremony, where they don the green tunic of the legendary Hero of Time. That Hero of Time fought in an era of sprawling fields and forests, in a kingdom known as Hyrule. That hero had fought the great evil who had taken the powerful Triforce. With the sword of evil's bane, that hero sealed away the evil man. There had been peace for a time, but eventually the evil man's corruption crept back into the land. The people of the ancient kingdom of Hyrule thought the Hero of Time would come back to save them, but he never did. Appealing to the gods for help in their desperate hour, the kingdom was flooded and the people scrambled to the highest points they could find. Just the beginning part of this game got me really excited about it. Even during the introduction, I realized this wasn't some random new story. This was a continuation of the story and world from one of my favorite games of all time. That same Link I played as to save that long-forgotten kingdom is the same one talked about in the ceremonies of this island. But our Link in Wind Waker is different. Despite not speaking, he does have quite a surprising personality. When his grandmother gives him the ceremonial clothes for his birthday, he looks uncomfortable and reluctant. When talking to his sister, he seems like a typical older brother, not exactly excited to partake in his sister's antics. Later on, when he defeats bosses, he's overjoyed and dancing. This Link really is just a kid. His jovial and lighthearted attitude also fits in with the world. The Wind Waker is bright and colorful. The big blue Great Sea with several islands full of colors and topography. The people that inhabit them are largely happy and excited to interact with you. The situations we find people in are silly. Even enemies are bright and colorful. Sure, it's different from the Zeldas I've played, but I've changed since I was a kid and I ended up liking this different tone. And the best part is it's all kind of a beautiful deception. This is a world that was flooded over to wash away the evils of a Dark Lord. People are now cramped on tiny islands. This doesn't seem like a triumphant victory. It's the current society's normal, this is all they've known. But you as the player know that a kingdom has been lost. Not because the people overthrew it, but because the people were afraid. As a player, you know that their ancestors lost everything, and that somewhere out there may be that same Dark Lord. While enjoying his new telescope given to him by his sister, Link sees a strange interaction involving a huge bird hauling off a girl. The pirate ship she was stolen from fires volleys at the bird until she's released from its talons. Link goes into the island forest to find her. Also trying to find her are some minions. Once they're dispatched, we meet Tetra, a feisty pirate and leader of the ship that was trying to save her earlier. Soon after this though, the bird comes back and takes Link's sister. In a desperate scramble to find a sister, Link is met by not only the pirates, but a strange bird-like creature who informs them of what is going on. He says there is an island where young girls are taken to. It's swept up in rumors and conspiracy theories. Apparently horrible things happen on this island. Huh, I feel like I've heard this before. Maybe they should release the ship logs of everybody who's been to that island. Anyway, I think I'll go there myself to get my sister back. As you depart the island with Tetra and the gang, there's a really tender moment where Link is waving goodbye and his poor grandma is on the porch waving to him. She's so sweet, and obviously she's upset by everything going on because she just lost one of her grandchildren, and her other one is going out to find her. This one's for Granny. The Forsaken Island is understandably sinister and foreboding. After we are gently dropped off on the island, we lose our sword. From here, Link must sneak around the compound, disabling the lights that will kick you back to the start if they shine on you. Eventually you do get your sword back, but most of this sequence is sneaking. I didn't really like how early this sequence happened. Not that a sequence like this exists at all, because I do think it's an interesting concept. I just mean doing this so soon after you're given your sword in the first place. Although I said it felt familiar, I still wanted to have the sword and swing it around a little bit. We only got to use it briefly back on Outset Island. I feel like a disarmed sneaking segment would have worked better several more hours into the gameplay. It just feels like you shouldn't throw that curveball in that soon. Later in the story you actually come back here, and I think that would have been a great opportunity to do it. It would even make sense story-wise because maybe the rascals on the island aren't expecting a visitor, but after you tear their asses up, they upgrade their security protocols. Then you can have the same scenario play out with Link losing his sword and sneaking around the compound because the security's so much better. Anyway, eventually Link finds his way back to his sword and his sister. But before he can rescue her, the bird shows up and hauls Link back out to the ocean. But not before catching a glimpse of a dark figure who seems to command the bird. Passed out, stranded in the Great Sea, the rescue mission appears to be a failure, until the King of Red Lions shows up and helps Link get to an island. The King of Red Lions is a talking ship that also acts as Link's guide. This is how Link will traverse the Great Sea, and he'll stop Link after important story beats to tell him where to go next, or inform him about the lore. This is where he fills in Link on who the dark figure was back on the island. It wasn't some shady financier, it's the Dark Lord himself, Ganon. He also makes very clear this is the same Ganon from all the legends. which made me initially confused why he let Link survive the bird's clutches when he saw us. I mean, we're a blonde-haired kid wearing a green tunic who is meddling in his affairs. I know it's been a long time, but I still think he'd remember a little interaction with someone who looked like that back in the day. It would make sense that Ganon wouldn't think it was the same hero, considering there was no hero around to stop him when he returned to Hyrule before it was flooded. The King of Red Lions asks Link if he will do anything to save his sister, and Link of course says yes. So the big boat tells Link in order to defeat Ganon he'd need the Master Sword. It's not just about getting the sword though. The sword itself is only obtainable to the true hero, and that hero would need to overcome trials and collect items to unlock its true power. The quest to obtain the Master Sword will take place all over the Great Sea, a massive overworld map where all the islands are strewn about. You'll travel on your trusty talking boat over the treacherous waters, discovering all types of islands and enemies trying to stop you. When I was able to finally explore the Great Sea, I went in with a positive attitude. The music is of course great, but it was more than just good music. It felt triumphant, heroic, and like the notes itself was putting winds into my sails. As soon as I would set sail on the Great Sea, I could feel the smile forming on my face. The music in Zelda games has always been great, but music takes another step in prominence in the plot of this game, even more than Ocarina of Time. The Wind Waker is a conductor's baton where you will learn several songs that perform different functions, the main one being changing the wind direction to push your sails to the next destination. Although in the HD version this is made a tad redundant with the swift sail. The sages you will meet later play an instrument which is vital to their roles in the coming events. Zelda wouldn't be Zelda without its music. So many of my favorite moments of the series are elevated from the music, and I don't think I'd remember them as I do without it. When I write scripts about Zelda games I play, I listen to it back and I get really self-critical and I think my scripts suck. But then I'll put the music from the score underneath it and suddenly I can hear my passion again. I think it's because I write hearing these songs in my head. I'm listening to the ocean theme as I'm typing this, and it puts a wind in my sails. Suddenly I can remember funny moments like how I would catch the apex of a wave and then hit the jump button to catch even more air. How I play the little rupee game or avoid those freakishly accurate cannonball ships. All of this made me love traversing the Great Sea. That's right, I said it. Maybe the high seas aren't so bad. It has to lend credibility to the game that it's good design if I initially rolled my eyes at the thought of sailing on a big sprawling sea before even having played it, and then I wind up enjoying it. Music also plays a huge role in combat itself back on land. When sword fighting, you'll get audio indicators of your combinations telling you if you're landing effective hits. The notes will ascend, and sometimes even Link will literally ascend to finish off the bar and kill the enemy. This leads to not only satisfying combat, but also informing the player if they're being effective or not. The sprawling Great Sea is not a vast, empty expanse that you meander through. It's full of things to do like encountering islands, enemies, underwater items, and random events. All of that combined with the great music made me want to explore. To access the Master Sword, Link must gather the Goddess Pearls, Din, Farore, and Nehru, the recurring deities of the Zelda series. Each of these pearls are on different islands protected by various races of the world. The Rito, Koroks, and a fish named Jaboon. Link will complete tasks for all three of them in order to get the pearls as a reward. All three of these entities are yet more familiar things to me. The Rito people live on Dragon Roost Island with their patron deity, Valoo. The island itself has a huge volcano with a dragon sitting on top of it, and it has a V in its name, so it reminded me of Death Mountain and Vivagia. And then the Rito people are shockingly descendants of the Zora. Yeah, these bird-like people with beaks traded in their flippers for wings apparently. We'll find out more about their direct blood ties later, but one of the first hints I saw was as soon as I met the sage Medli. She has the Zora sapphire design right on her clothing. At first I rejected my own curiosity that this had anything to do with the Zora and was likely an Easter egg or something. It wasn't until later that I realized there was a true blood connection between the Rito and the Zora. Farore's Pearl is held amongst the Koroks, who tend to the Great Deku Tree on the island of Forest Haven. The Great Deku Tree seems to recognize Link and even speaks in Old Hylian to him, which the Hero of Time would have understood, until he realizes it's not the same hero. The tree then explains that these little Koroks that tend to him are the descendants of the Kokiri. Yet another shocking revelation to me. The Great Deku Tree sends Link into the Forbidden Woods to find a little Korok named Makar, and then receiving that pearl after finding him. The final pearl is held by Jaboon, a likely descendant of Lord Jabu Jabu. They're both deity fish who are associated with Nehru, and Jaboon's theme is even a remix of the inside of Jabu Jabu's music. I know I keep gushing over these links to the past, but I have to. This was low-hanging fruit for me. These references were so cool to learn about. Throughout the years, I really have left Zelda on my back burner, and I had not been diving into the lore to have known any of this. Around every corner I was excited to learn more about this world and explore. What the hell happened to everybody and everything? Why do they look the way they do? Certain characters wonder if I'm the hero of time because they remember him. And it was convenient that my desire to explore and learn more about the world was beautifully designed in this game. These pearls will need to be obtained through completing dungeons. First and foremost, I feel like Wind Waker gets right to the point in all of the acts throughout the game. Soon after I got my sword on Outside Island, I was heading to the Forsaken Fortress. And after that, I'm quickly learning my way around Windfall Island and sailing the Great Sea. After a brief and often very quick introduction to the islands containing the pearls, I'm off to start the dungeon. In hindsight, I think Ocarina of Time had a lot of exposition and tedium between each spiritual stone and medallion. For example, you have to do a bit of back and forth for the Zora King, and then he moves like molasses to allow you to enter Lord Jabu Jabu. Later in the game, there are pretty big sequence breaks between medallions where you're doing a lot of build-up before you even enter the dungeon. Wind Waker does not feel like that. You arrive on the island, get some interesting details about the current island inhabitants and their past, which are both interesting, and almost immediately after that, you're in the dungeon. Once you're actually in the dungeons of this game, I'm further excited to report that I don't feel like my time is wasted. Yes, there are some difficult puzzles that took some time to figure out, or I would allow my chat on stream to help me solve. But for the most part, I found the puzzles fun and intuitive. What I remember most in the N64 Zelda games is a fair bit of backtracking. If you happen to miss the small key, it would mean hours of progressing but realizing you don't have that one key. So you go back and search every room again searching for it. Or in the case of the water temple, you're raising and lowering water levels and rechecking areas over and over again to see if anything has changed. I didn't feel like that once in Wind Waker. There are still small keys, and I suppose you could still not find one and need to backtrack, but in my case, I didn't need to do that a single time. The way the dungeons were designed allowed me to solve the dungeon bit by bit, collecting my items and keys as I went for a continual march to the boss. I also don't remember too much cryptic discovery methods either. I will confess that I've made the argument before that some backtracking in video games is fine. Maybe getting a new item that allows you to go back to a previous area and interact with the environment more. Usually this feels best when it means backtracking for an optional item or reward and not tied to progression. And that's how I feel like it is in Wind Waker. For example, you could go back to Windfall Island a few times with new items you've gotten at various points in the story to reveal hidden chests or other rewards, and none of that is required to complete the game. This type of design made the game feel fluid and that it respected the time I was putting into it. I do have a bit of a gripe though. Sometimes the platforming in this game felt really annoying. Link would do this half jump where he just stopped in midair and would fall down a bottomless pit. And I wasn't sure what was causing this. Was it the angle I was going at? Was it the speed I was going at? This sent me into a rage a few times throughout the game. Of all the 3 dungeons to retrieve the pearls, I think the Forbidden Woods was my favorite. I'm always partial to forest settings as I'm from Western Washington State, near the forests and mountains of the Cascades, which is also likely where my dislike of the sea comes from, as I like to stay close to the forests and mountains. My favorite item was actually the grappling hook, and it's probably for the most ridiculous reason you're ever going to hear. But what I love most about this thing is its extremely satisfying sound design it has. Like, listen to this when it grapples onto something. I love it. My favorite boss sequence is with Goma because I liked pulling on Valu's tail to drop the slab of rock down on its creepy ass. Once the 3 pearls are obtained and Link awakens the Tower of the Gods, my favorite sequence of the game begins. Link has yet another trial to overcome by scaling the Tower of the Gods and fighting a mechanical being known as Ganon. After that though, Link can ring a giant bell that opens a portal into the ocean depths. It's here where you get to see the old kingdom of Hyrule itself and realize it's not really an Atlantis type situation, but a kingdom suspended in time. You arrive in the main throne room that was right in the middle of being overran by Ganon's minions. They're all frozen just like the kingdom itself. In the castle's basement is the Blade of Evil's Bane, the sword that seals the darkness, the Master Sword. Once taken from the pedestal, the stasis is broken. Before ascending back up to the throne room, I took the time to look at the glass portraits telling the story of Ocarina of Time. All the original sages are depicted on art like Saria, Ruto, and Impa. And it was really this moment where I started to really feel the regret for my past bias against this game. I was sitting in this basement, seeing the story of something I've played out countless times. A story I know well, but seeing it told by the developers themselves in retrospect via the art of this room. I had regret because I wish I had been more open-minded to different ideas and artistic liberties as a youth. Knowing how much this game is tied to Ocarina of Time, I would have at least tried it and probably loved it. This Master Sword has fallen on hard times though. Having lost its mojo, it needs sages' prayers to restore it to its former glory. With the Master Sword of Legend finally in his hands, Link can attempt to save his sister again. The return to the Forsaken Fortress is a quick affair like we mentioned earlier because we've already solved most of it. Link finally gets revenge on that dumbass bird while Tetra and her crew rescue his sister. It's time to confront the financier himself, the Dark Lord, Ganon. However, he backslaps Link and reveals that the Master Sword is legit, but when Link pulled it from its pedestal, it also removed the stasis, freezing the minions and unleashed Ganon's contained magical powers. Ganon says the sword's power is gone and that it won't be able to stop him this time. Just before Ganon finishes Link off, Tetra appears and distracts the Dark King. However, it's during their scuffle that the Triforce of Power that he holds reacts because she has a piece of the Triforce herself, the Triforce of Wisdom, which means she is Princess Zelda. Okay, that blew my mind. That was never spoiled for me, and I had no clue that was coming. I figured Zelda was probably in stasis somewhere in the underwater kingdom and we'd meet her later or something. It was a shocking revelation that I immediately approved of because it just made too much sense. A charismatic person wielding the Triforce of Wisdom probably could become a sea captain. It was also a Zelda I had never seen before. Spunky, mischievous, bossy to her crew. I loved it. Similar to how this has played out in the past though, we've kind of handed Ganon the two pieces of the Triforce right where he wants them. However, the patron deity Valoo shows up in time to burn Ganon's ass to a crisp. I was pretty excited about this, and I had no idea how Ganon even survived. But I also loved how Valoo did a little victory lap around the fortress before leaving. Once safely removed from the Forsaken Fortress, the King of Red Lions wants us to return to the Underwater Kingdom to explain the rest of what the hell is going on. Back down in the Master Sword's chamber room, it's revealed that the boat has been the King of Hyrule himself. Now that was unfortunately spoiled for me earlier on by none other than me. Yeah, I know, my bad. I was just so interested in the story that I wanted to know what the king was saying when he was speaking Hylian to Jaboon and Valoo. And when I got the translation, I immediately saw that Jaboon refers to him as the King of Hyrule. I wasn't trying to spoil it, I just wanted to know what they were saying. The king then explains everything else about Tetra and Link's role in this world, how Ganon attempted to take the land once again, and how when the hero failed to show up, they appealed to the gods. The gods heard the people's pleas and caused a torrential downpour to wash away the kingdom, sealing both it and Ganon away. The king then explains that Tetra's beloved necklace is a portion of the Triforce of Wisdom, passed down the generations. He then gives her the other piece to reveal her purpose in this world. The scene itself is beautiful, and I get chills hearing the Link to the Past opening sequence. However, I don't like how Tetra completely transforms into Zelda to include her skin color. She acts strange initially because it's a lot to take in. The king even mentions how she looks confused, and that's totally understandable. But I think this type of transformation feels out of place. You don't really get to interact with Tetra much in this form either, so there isn't much opportunity to see her personality. Other than a brief part near the end of the game where you see a little bit of her defiance against Ganon, she largely looks and feels different than Tetra, and I think that's a missed opportunity. I want the swashbuckling pirate Zelda that we've met, aware of her new role, but playing it in a way that's more natural to her. She could even make commentary about how she doesn't like dresses or she looks embarrassed or uncomfortable. Just like Link did when his grandma wanted him to wear the traditional tunic. When the king requests that she stay in the kingdom to hide away from Ganon, she could argue with him because I don't see Tetra leaving her crew and Link to fight alone. I mean, she didn't abandon Link back at the Forsaken Fortress, and the skin color changing is entirely unnecessary. I'm not even making a social or political statement. It's not like Link's appearance or personality changes to the Link of Ocarina of Time when he completes the Triforce of Courage. As I mentioned though, you don't really get to see much of her after this point, so that issue doesn't get compounded. In order to restore the power back to the Master Sword so that it may be used to confront Ganon, we need to awaken the new sages that will pray to the gods to bring back the sword's strength. This will be done by awakening Medli and Makar to their destined roles as sages. Medli for the Earth Temple and Makar for the Wind Temple. These temples change the pace of the gameplay by using the command melody, which allows Link to take control of the sages during their respective dungeons. I did like this gameplay, but the constant playing of the melody reminded me of a similar style from the Ikana Castle in Majora's Mask, where you're casting images of Link's different mask forms and having to play the Elegy of Emptiness over and over again to perform the image casting. I think a better system would have been some type of item that you could just do this instantly, where you're around an eligible character in a dungeon. With a click of a button, you could just swap to controlling a different character. I really liked what was going on with the Wind Temple since it's associated with Makar and the Koroks. Because I had always heard rumors how the Wind Temple was supposed to make an appearance in the Ocarina of Time but was ultimately scrapped to make the Forest Temple. So this kind of feels like the developers making a nod to that by having it appear in this capacity. After completing the Earth and Wind Temples, their new sages can begin praying to the gods. And it's also soon after this that the king declares us the hero of the winds. With the Master Sword restored, we can confront Ganon back in the tower in the Sunken Kingdom. His tower plays like many other final sequences in Zelda, where it's echoes of your journey summarized with older items and puzzle concepts recycled. I actually like this design because it feels like the final exam of the semester or something, where you're having to remember puzzles and solutions. What I didn't like was having to fight all the major bosses again in small slices. I mean, it's the identical fight each time. What I had just talked about before is not the same thing as this. Yes, the final puzzles look aesthetically similar to the dungeon they're based on, but they are new puzzles. The fights with the bosses are exactly the same, even down to having to pull Valu's tail on Goma. I'm not going to defend this, it feels really underwhelming. I think the rematches should have had some type of story element to it to spice up the fight. Like Ganon resurrected them as zombie-like beings or giving them new weapons or armor. And they don't have to be long fights, it could be small slices just like the original ones are, but change it up a bit, do something a little bit different. I do love getting the light arrows in Ganon's tower though. These things are like mini nukes to the Zelda world, they absolutely blow enemies away and will be important to the final fight. Once Link completes all the trials, he confronts Ganon in a chamber where Zelda is sleeping. He reads her mind and can see her dreams. Oceans as far as the eye can see. None can swim across them. They yield no fish to catch. Ganon mocks the king's word about the people sealing the kingdom away and that they'd eventually restore it. But he points out that a bunch of scared people scattered on a handful of islands drifting on the sea like fallen leaves on a forgotten pool can't achieve any of that. And that really, the gods destroyed everything. And you know what? Is he wrong? Before I can think about any of that though, Ganon turns into a marionette and the fight begins. It's a 3-stage sequence where he goes from a boar to bug and finally a worm. The hardest one for me was the worm form because I made the crucial error of sticking too close to the wall and he just kept curling back into me. I didn't have time to think about anything, it drove me crazy. After these forms are defeated, Ganon challenges Link to a final fight at the top of the tower, leading to the best exposition of Ganon I've ever seen. He explains where he came from. His country was a vast desert. When the sun rose into the sky, a burning wind would punish the land and seared the world, and at night a frigid cold pierced through their homes. To him, wind carried death. But those same winds that brought so much suffering and ruin treated the land of Hyrule differently. It blew peacefully through the kingdom's gentle pastures and fields. Ganon coveted that wind. He takes the remaining Triforce pieces for himself after quickly dispatching Link and calls upon the gods to bring forth the burning sun's rays. But not before the King of Hyrule swoops in to steal the wish request for himself, calling upon the gods to actually wash away the kingdom of Hyrule. And just then, the water begins to burst from the barrier and flood the kingdom. This final fight with Ganondorf is outstanding. It's not terribly hard to understand or complete, but it's the setting. There are two kings watching the thing they hold most dear wash away during their whole fight. One king wanted to preserve and protect his kingdom. The other coveted it and wanted it for himself. And neither of them get what they want now. As their ambitions wash away in real time, you're fighting Ganon. And this time, we're not sealing him away. I absolutely lost my mind at this scene. I was so excited. Remember back when I talked about the tone of the game was hiding a darker tone within? It took everything in me not to blurt out Ganon taking a fucking sword to the face, but man, does it feel satisfying to say. It's not just the conclusion that feels satisfying though. This man coveted a wind that wouldn't hurt him or his people. I'm sure we can agree his methods aren't acceptable, but it does add more color to his personality. Is it so wrong to have coveted a different wind? This is the same Ganondorf from Ocarina of Time who seemingly only wanted to be an evil ruler for the hell of it. But this time we get to hear more of his thoughts and reasoning for wanting to take the kingdom for himself. And there's a similarity that Ganondorf shares with the King of Hyrule himself. They both live bound to this kingdom. And that's why it all must end here. I feel like the King of Hyrule only realized that within these last few moments. He didn't ask for the gods to purge or seal Ganon away again, because he knew he'd be right back here a millennia from now, fighting the same battles all over again. He asked for the thing that he and Ganondorf covet the most to be destroyed, once and for all. This may be my own interpretation or one shared by many, I don't know, but I think the reason Ganondorf seemed at peace when whispering his last words is because he's finally been released from his fate too. The thing these two men are fighting over is being destroyed forever, at least this iteration of it. The king tells the heroes to live on, free from this ancient battle, a battle they never asked for and don't deserve to deal with. The king asks for forgiveness and goes down with the ship. I loved the Wind Waker. I know there was criticism sprinkled in there, but admittedly several were personal nitpicks that I recognize may be things only I care about. I am not perfect, but one of the things I like about myself is that I can recognize my biases. Even when I'm typing something out, I can see it's probably only something I care about, but I want to mention it regardless. I think my most fair criticism is the rematch sequence in Ganon's Tower. I still think that could have been done better, but I loved this world. A kingdom washed away and separated by hundreds or maybe thousands of years, I don't know. What lies on the surface and below the surface is riddled with ripples of the past that I recognize as someone who loved Ocarina of Time. The gameplay felt fun and familiar to me. The music, as always, was great, and that final fight was so damn good. It also felt like a true ending with a real conclusion. In the end of Ocarina of Time, Ganondorf is talking shit from his sealed prison in the Sacred Realm. Well, he ain't talking shit anymore. All jokes aside, even he seemed at peace with this endless crusade. I'm not an expert in Zelda lore, and I think that is a strength, because I don't think you need to be one to play this game and enjoy it. Folks, that's all I've got for The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. Thank you to my YouTube channel members Quinn, Chris Redbeard, and Brewham, and to my patrons Shio, Lyra, Eon Kane, Martane, and 2 new members, Smudge and Brooks. My Patreon is free, so join it to see what I'm up to next or anything I'm doing behind the scenes. But if you become a paid member on YouTube or Patreon, I'll shout you out in my videos, and it helps me bring you content long into the future. Thanks again for watching. I'll see you in the next one.